The Las Vegas Strip was once the electric pulse of America's nightlife, a brutal arena where fortunes were forged and shattered in the blink of an eye. Its neon glare once burned with such ferocity, it swallowed the desert darkness whole. But stalk those same streets today, and you'll witness a chilling sight. Deserted walkways, eerily silent casinos. Entire resorts stand as hollow shells, their grand lobbies echoing with a deafening void. Make no mistake, this was no accident. A former casino CEO has sounded the alarm. Las Vegas is being emptied by design. For decades, this city was peddled as a fantasy land of infinite possibility and relentless celebration, drawing in millions of unsuspecting tourists each year, all of them sold on the lie that Vegas was invincible. But in the shadows, behind locked boardroom doors, the city's puppet masters were already sealing its fate. What if this haunting emptiness isn't failure, but a meticulously engineered master plan? What if the casino oligarchs orchestrated this very collapse? Tonight, we are tearing down the facade to expose the sickening truth of Las Vegas. The high-stakes financial manipulations, the backroom betrayals, and the cold-blooded strategy that turned America's playground into a modern-day ghost town. Do not look away, because the revelations to come will shatter everything you thought you knew about Sin City. Las Vegas was never meant to be a mere city. It was engineered to be an assault on reality itself. A blindingly brilliant mirage summoned from the Nevada desert. A vortex where ambition, greed, and debauchery violently collided. In the mid-20th century, the Strip became the undisputed, glittering epicenter of American culture. Legends of the Rat Pack like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin held entire theaters captive. Elvis Presley transformed mere sold-out shows into seismic cultural events. The casinos themselves swelled into grotesque monuments, palaces of blinding light and deafening sound, and a spectacle built on the seductive promise that anything, absolutely anything, was attainable. For decades, Vegas wasn't just a place you visited, it was a testament to raw, unchecked ambition. Americans swarmed there to gamble away their futures, while international tourists flocked to witness what they saw as the apex of opulence and abandon. The streets throbbed with a manic energy, 24 hours a day. Gaudy neon reflected off the polished hoods of limousines. High-stakes predators stacked mountains of chips in suffocating, smoke-choked rooms. And even the city's working class was swept up in the delusion of living inside a machine that would never stop. The business model was deceptively simple, yet brutally effective. More bodies meant more profit. The casinos dangled cheap buffets as bait, drastically slashed hotel room prices, and offered an endless stream of hollow perks, all to lure people through their doors. Because they knew that once a soul stepped across that threshold, the house was guaranteed to win. Billions upon billions were siphoned into the city's coffers annually. Developers engaged in a frenzied arms race, erecting monstrous mega resorts that were part entertainment prison, part theme park, part cathedral to consumerism. By the 1990s, Las Vegas had metastasized into the fastest growing city in America. Its siren call attracting not just desperate gamblers, but families, celebrities, and corporations, all clamoring to host their events in this desert mirage. But lurking beneath all that glittering success was a dark and unspoken pact. The entire enterprise of Vegas was built on a foundation of pure illusion. The kaleidoscopic lights and the river of free liquor were nothing but a distraction from the cold, hard truth. Every spin of the wheel, every pull of a lever was a calculated mechanism designed to systematically drain the pockets of its players. And still, the masses came, willingly, even gratefully, just to be a cog in the grand shimmering spectacle. This was the twisted genius of Las Vegas. It never just sold gambling. It sold a dangerous, addictive drug called hope. The hope that you could defy the crushing odds. The hope that for one night, you could transcend your mundane life. The hope that you could become a different person, if only until the harsh reality of your flight home. But that Gilded Age was built on quicksand. Its very existence depended on perpetual growth, on an infinite river of tourists feeding a ravenous machine. For decades, the city swelled under the dangerously naive assumption that the flood of people would never cease. The strip grew longer, the towers clawed higher into the sky, the jackpots became more obscene, and as long as the planes kept disgorging their human cargo, the corrupt system held. By the early 2000s, Las Vegas was swallowing over 35 million visitors a year, generating obscene billions in gambling revenue alone. Its brand had become a global titan, an American empire built on the worship of chance. It was at this zenith of arrogance that Vegas cemented its own myth as a city that could never fall. Economic catastrophes crippled other states, but Vegas, with its endless bag of tricks, always managed to seduce visitors back with gaudy new attractions and celebrity sideshows, or simply by peddling the empty promise of reinvention. It seemed that nothing, absolutely nothing, could shatter this monstrous machine. Or so the world was led to believe. Because while the world stared, mesmerized at an empire of light that seemed eternal, the insiders were already whispering the terrifying truth that Vegas had become a bloated, over-leveraged monster, dangerously addicted to a fragile flow of cash that could vanish in an instant. And when that day came, the fallout would be nothing short of apocalyptic. The first tremors of the collapse didn't arrive with blaring alarms. It began like a sickness, creeping in silently, a shadow falling over the desert oasis. The lifeblood of the city, hotel occupancy, began to drain away, almost imperceptibly at first. A mere few percentage points, they claimed. But on the casino floors, once the thrumming heart of the Strip, dead zones of empty seats began to fester. The international tourists, particularly from China and Canada, who were once the very pillars of this empire of excess, were suddenly ghosts. The official narrative, the easy scapegoat, was inflation. And why not? The price of everything from a flight to a cocktail was a slap in the face. That legendary $10 buffet was now a $50 shakedown. Hidden resort fees became a gauntlet of financial traps, and the core promise of an affordable escape had evaporated into a cruel mirage. For the average family, Vegas was no longer a bargain. It was a predator. But this was just the lie they wanted you to believe. Beneath that convenient excuse, something far more sinister was unfolding. Casinos were deliberately strangling their own operations. Entire wings of gaming floors were quietly cordoned off, silenced. Restaurants began shuttering their doors early. Even blockbuster shows, the ones that once defined the city's glamour, went dark overnight, with no explanation, no apology. A culture of silence was enforced. Employees whispered of being ordered to lie when confronted with the haunting emptiness, but the tourists could feel it, an eerie void that made them ask if the very soul of Vegas had been ripped out. By 2024, the numbers were a bloodbath that could no longer be hidden. Visitor counts had nosedived, and the Strip felt hollowed out, a skeletal version of its former self. The constant electric roar of human energy was gone, replaced by long, unnerving stretches of silence. The city's cabbies, its lifeblood, complained of fares that never came. A fleet of Uber drivers sat idle at McCarran Airport, a silent testament to the collapse. Street performers played to empty sidewalks. The neon still bled into the night sky, but there were far fewer eyes left to witness it. For the masses, the explanation was simple and digestible. The economy was in turmoil, and people were clutching their wallets. But from the inside, a terrifying truth began to leak out. Insiders spoke of an intentional purge, a scorched earth strategy orchestrated by the very corporate giants who were feigning victimhood. It was a notion that defied all logic. Why would billion-dollar behemoths actively sabotage their own cash flow? But the evidence was a damning indictment. Instead of lowering prices to lure back the crowds, the casinos gouged them. Instead of flooding the market with promotions to fill the void, they offered nothing. This was not a series of mistakes, this was a controlled demolition. This horrifying theory gained traction as whispers turned to roars from those who worked behind the Strip's gilded facade. Dealers, pit bosses, even high-level hotel managers all told the same chilling story. The orders from on high were not to save Vegas, but to break it, to reshape it in a new, colder image. "We were told the empty floors didn't matter," one former employee finally confessed. "The executive said this was all part of a bigger picture, that we were entering a new phase." But what kind of phase begins with corporate self-immolation? Economists watched in disbelief as these titans of industry defied every fundamental rule of business. When any normal enterprises die, it fights for its life with slashed prices and desperate deals. Las Vegas did the unthinkable opposite. Prices soared into the stratosphere as amenities were stripped away. The city was actively barricading itself. It was a conscious, calculated effort to build a wall around its glittering heart. A wall designed to filter the population, to decide who was worthy of entry and who would be left outside in the cold. And the tourists, the loyal masses who built this city, felt the profound sting of betrayal. Social media erupted with tales of outrage, of paying luxury prices for a ghost town experience. "I paid $500 for a room in a morgue," one review screamed. "It felt creepy, not glamorous." The consensus was grim and universal. The energy, the very essence of what made Vegas Vegas was gone. Without the crowds, without that chaotic, beautiful noise, the Strip was just a grotesque stretch of asphalt lined with soulless, empty monuments. The stark contrast with its vibrant past made the current emptiness a disturbing, open wound. It was staggering to remember that just years before, Las Vegas was on a triumphant rebound from the global shutdown. Global superstars packed its arenas night after night. International visitors stormed its gates in endless waves. The convention centers were bursting with commerce and power. The city felt immortal. So how did a dream die so quickly? The answer, according to the insiders, was simple and utterly unsettling. It didn't die. It was murdered, orchestrated, executed. This collapse wasn't a failure, it was a feature. It was a corporate reset, a deliberate culling of the herd designed to permanently alter the DNA of Las Vegas. Behind the deafening silence of the Strip lay a cold, calculated agenda, and a former casino CEO was about to step into the light and confirm the one thing everyone feared. The emptiness was never an accident, but a strategy engineered in the shadowy boardrooms of power. When the former casino titan finally broke his silence, the effect was a seismic shockwave, rattling the desert floor. His name was once synonymous with the Strip's most legendary resort, a man who had commanded billions in revenue, star-studded headliners, and expansions that violently redrew the skyline. But after abdicating his throne and watching the very industry he forged cannibalize itself from within, he decided it was time to unleash the toxic truth that had been festering in whispers for years. Vegas is not dying by chance, he declared in a private confession that erupted into a public firestorm. It's a wasteland because that's precisely what we orchestrated. At first, his words seemed like madness. Why would casino barons, men and women whose entire fortunes were built on teeming crowds, deliberately engineer their own demise? The terrifying answer he laid bare was rooted in the cold, brutal arithmetic of the Strip. For decades, the casinos had thrived on a volume game. Millions of middle-class visitors bled small amounts of money that compounded into gargantuan profits. But as costs skyrocketed and the global economy fractured, that entire model began to rot. The executives began to ask a chilling new question. Why bother chasing millions of minnows when you can simply hunt a handful of whales? According to the former CEO, the battle plan was brutally simple. Cull the herd, make the city poisonously expensive for casual gamblers and weekend tourists, and in the ashes, cultivate a new elite clientele. High-rolling titans from tech, finance, and global wealth hubs who could incinerate six figures in a single careless night. By purging the masses from the Strip, the casinos were methodically reshaping Vegas into an exclusive sanctuary for the obscenely rich. The goal was never to keep Vegas full, he confessed. The goal was to make it untouchable. But this twisted exclusivity was only one part of the sinister plot. The CEO revealed that consolidation was the other, darker motive. When visitor numbers plummeted and revenues hemorrhaged, the smaller operators who couldn't survive the manufactured storm were bled dry and forced to sell. Prime, irreplaceable properties went up for auction at fire sale prices, and the largest casino conglomerates began their quiet, predatory feeding frenzy. What looked like a city in catastrophic decline was, in reality, a strategic corporate conquest. We deliberately triggered the market's collapse, the CEO confessed with chilling candor. Because when the rubble settles, only the apex predators survive, and we were determined to be the only ones left. The plan was never just about real estate. It was about absolute power. By strangling the audience and seizing control of access, the casinos could manipulate demand, inflate prices with impunity, and systematically eradicate any competition that had once served the lower-cost visitors. The CEO even admitted that some resorts began intentionally gutting their own amenities, not because they were failing, but because they wanted to broadcast a clear, contemptuous message. If you cannot afford Vegas at its most punishingly expensive, you are no longer welcome here. Perhaps the most damning revelation was how deeply this conspiracy was entangled with Wall Street. Predatory hedge funds and private equity firms he exposed had been demanding this scorched earth strategy for years. They viewed Vegas not as a hub of entertainment, but as a financial asset to be stripped for parts, consolidated, and rebuilt for maximum, obscene returns. Tourist volume was irrelevant next to stock performance. They have no reverence for the magic of Vegas, he said. They worship quarterly earnings, and if fewer visitors create higher margins, then, to them, a ghost town is a gold mine. The CEO's words were a horrifying confirmation of what thousands of employees had long feared. The eerie, deafening silence on casino floors wasn't a sign of mismanagement. It was a feature of the design. Every shuttered restaurant, every darkened theater, every desolate night on the Strip was a calculated step toward the future Vegas the executives were birthing. Not a bustling carnival for the masses, but a sterile, curated playground for the elite. A city where only the wealthiest would be permitted to stay, to gamble, and to play. The revelation detonated like a bomb across the community. Workers who had been cast aside suddenly understood the cold calculus of their ruin. Tourists who had felt alienated and unwelcome finally realized they were being intentionally purged. And locals, who had always known Vegas as a city built on the roar of its crowds, confronted the chilling truth that their home was being systematically re-engineered into something alien and hostile. "This isn't the Vegas I helped build," the CEO admitted with a rare, fleeting note of regret. "We built this city on the backs of millions of people. Now it's being rebuilt for the chosen few. And I warn you, when the lights finally flicker back on, do not expect to recognize the city you remember." The fallout from this predatory strategy has been catastrophic for the people who wove their lives into the very fabric of Las Vegas. Entire neighborhoods that once pulsed with the lifeblood of tourism now sit hollow and half dead, their streets haunted by the ghosts of shuttered small businesses. In what felt like the blink of an eye, the lifeblood of Vegas, the diners and eateries for everyday people, was cut off, their customers vanishing as if they never existed. Cab drivers, cocktail servers, performers, dealers, the very heart of the city's workforce. Tens of thousands of lives were shattered. Collateral damage in a cold, calculated game played by faceless executives in sterile, high-rise boardrooms, miles away from the carnage they created. For the people who called Las Vegas home, this corporate reset was a cruel joke. It wasn't a fresh start, it was a death sentence for their livelihoods, a descent into pure despair, as local reports began to confirm. The numbers paint a horrifying picture. By 2024, unemployment in the service industry had skyrocketed, leaving skilled workers with an impossible choice: flee the city they built, or be crushed by the indignity of minimum wage jobs far from the glittering ruins of the Strip. Even the city's vibrant soul is fading. Those iconic street performers, once the very embodiment of Vegas's wild, eccentric pulse, now play to empty sidewalks, their energy swallowed by a silence that attracts only a ghost of the crowds they once commanded. The legendary Strip, once a chaotic, thrumming carnival of life, now stands as a hollow, glittering corpse, a perfectly lit movie set waiting for actors who will never arrive. But make no mistake, for the architects of this devastation, this haunting emptiness wasn't a miscalculation. It was the entire point. This was success. By deliberately choking the life out of the city, they engineered a crisis, a manufactured collapse that gave them all the power. Small, struggling businesses, bled dry, had no choice but to sell for pennies on the dollar, clearing the way for corporate vultures and shadowy investors to descend and pick the bones. Venerable casino empires, once rivals, were simply swallowed whole by monolithic mega-corporations. This was a power grab on a scale previously unimaginable, a consolidation of control that would have been unthinkable in the city's heyday. The Strip, a battlefield of fierce competition, was now the private fiefdom of a tiny, untouchable corporate cartel. A former casino CEO with horrifying candor called it a controlled demolition. The objective was clear: to systematically dismantle the very structure of the old Vegas. Not with explosives, but with economic warfare. To erect a new, sterile empire from the rubble. You can't create exclusivity in a city built for the masses, he chillingly admitted. So the masses had to be removed. It was a strategy as brutal as it was effective. Starve the ecosystem, watch the vulnerable perish, and then build a gilded paradise on their ashes. But this brand of exclusivity always comes with a price, paid in blood and soul. By re-engineering Vegas as a sanctuary for billionaires and the global elite, they are committing an unforgivable sin. They are murdering the city's very identity. The Las Vegas of legend, the great American escape, the capital of wild weekends, the one place where an ordinary person could feel like a king for a night, that city is being systematically erased. And in its place, a sterile, gated playground for the ultra-rich is rising. It's a new strip with an invisible yet impenetrable wall, broadcasting a single chilling message to the average person: you are no longer welcome here. And this poison is spreading far beyond the borders of Nevada. The international jet set, once flocking from Asia and Europe, are now turning their backs, disgusted by the astronomical prices for a hollowed-out, soulless experience. Conventions, the lifeblood of the city's economy for decades, are now pulling out in droves, their organizers facing the grim reality that no one can afford or wants to attend a conference in a billionaire's ghost town. Even the coveted high rollers are starting to notice the silence. Without the roar of the crowd, without that raw, chaotic energy, the Vegas thrill feels cheap and empty. And here lies the supreme irony. In their obsessive pursuit of exclusivity, these corporate titans may have destroyed the very magic that made Vegas irresistible to everyone, including the rich. Yet behind closed doors, the architects of this new order remain disturbingly confident. Their cronies, the financial analysts on their payroll, insist the scorched earth strategy is a resounding success. The casino conglomerates boast of stable profits, even with empty floors, a feat achieved by bleeding obscene sums of money from a shrinking pool of ultra-wealthy patrons. And on Wall Street, the stock tickers for these gaming giants haven't flinched, propped up by investors who applaud this new Vegas as a leaner, more efficient profit machine. As one disgustingly blunt Wall Street report put it, fewer guests, higher spend per capita, Vegas is evolving, not collapsing. But for the actual people of Nevada, this evolution is nothing short of a profound, gut-wrenching betrayal. Community leaders are sounding the alarm, warning that their city is being hollowed out from the inside, becoming a corporate husk, utterly disconnected from its own people. Activists point to the grim evidence: skyrocketing homelessness, plummeting wages, and the death of a unique cultural soul as undeniable proof that this strategy is murdering more than just businesses. It's murdering the very spirit of Las Vegas. They have the audacity to say they're saving Vegas, one resident spat with bitterness. But the thing they're saving is a monster that bears no resemblance to the home we once knew and loved. And that brings us to the most haunting reality of all. This desolate emptiness you see on the Strip isn't a temporary downturn. It is the blueprint for the future. As that CEO so brazenly admitted, the endgame is nothing less than the total transformation of Las Vegas into a fortified luxury enclave. A grotesque experiment in social engineering, designed to turn America's most democratic playground into one of its most exclusive, impenetrable fortresses. So the question is no longer when will Vegas bounce back. The real, terrifying question is, will ordinary people ever be welcome here again? Because behind the vacant glow of the Strip's famous lights, a dark new chapter is being written. Lurks a truth far more sinister than mere exclusivity. The former casino CEO made it terrifyingly clear that what we're seeing, the deafening silence, the ghostly vacant towers, the shuttered restaurants, is just a carefully constructed facade. Beneath it, all festers a tangled conspiracy of money, politics, and secrecy, with tentacles reaching far beyond Nevada's borders. Be warned, he said, they don't just want to rebuild Vegas, they want to own it, to control its very soul. And this engineered emptiness is the perfect cover for their dark operations. According to those on the inside, one of the unspoken perks of a deserted Vegas is that it makes financial manipulation disgustingly easy. With fewer people, there are fewer witnesses to the crime. The manufactured decline in traffic provides the perfect alibi for creative accounting, for funneling illicit money through phantom companies, and for shifting fortunes across international borders without a single red flag. Investigators have long warned that casinos are nothing more than laundromats for dirty money, but the chilling silence of the Strip now makes that process almost impossible to trace. As the CEO shockingly explained, when the floors are dead quiet, no one is watching the chips. You can flush millions through the system and it's like it never even happened. And make no mistake, Wall Street's greedy fingerprints are all over this crime scene. Predatory private equity firms, once indifferent to the gambling world, suddenly smelled blood in the water. With the crowds gone, they could storm in and demand a brutal, ruthless restructuring. Casino executives, crushed under the heel of these investors, began sacrificing people for profits. For these corporate vultures, the emptiness of Las Vegas was never a crisis. It was a golden opportunity, a calculated chance to gut operations, slash labor to the bone, and cater exclusively to the high-rolling elites who delivered obscene returns. But the conspiracy deepens, stretching across oceans. The CEO alluded to shadowy alliances with foreign oligarchs, particularly those desperate for a discreet way to wash their questionable fortunes in the United States. High-end casinos, purged of ordinary tourists, became the ideal front for transactions hidden in plain sight. Billionaires could wire in a fortune, lose it all at the tables, and walk away with squeaky clean cash. Regulators might dare to ask questions, but with Vegas visibly on its knees, the cover story was already written for them. The emptiness itself became the ultimate smokescreen. Even more horrifying were the whispers of political collusion. The CEO claimed that state officials, fully aware of this hostile takeover, deliberately stood by and allowed it to happen. And why? Because they were getting their cut. Tax revenues from a few corporate behemoths were easier to control than those from dozens of smaller, honest operators. Lobbyists promised endless campaign support, and suddenly no one in power dared to ask why Vegas was being bled dry. The silence wasn't just on the casino floors, he warned. It was the chilling, complicit silence in the very halls of government. What makes this revelation so insidious is that the strategy is about more than money. It is a raw power grab achieved by engineering scarcity. Fewer rooms, fewer seats, fewer tickets. It's how they forge an ironclad illusion of exclusivity. This gives them absolute power to dictate who gets in, at what price, and on whose terms. And with that power, they are methodically erasing the very soul of Las Vegas. What was once America's playground is being twisted into a private gilded cage for the global super rich. But here is the terrifying truth they are desperate to conceal. This emptiness is permanent. According to the CEO, there is no plan to bring the masses back. In fact, the entire long-term vision is engineered to ensure they can never return. New resort designs are being tailored for opulent suites, private gaming salons, and VIP-only entertainment. Developers are openly courting foreign billionaires, celebrities, and tech titans, not hardworking families from Kansas or ordinary couples from Ohio. For the everyday person, Las Vegas is being deliberately and ruthlessly priced out of existence. And as the Strip falls unnervingly quiet, the power behind the curtain grows deafeningly loud. Hedge funds, foreign oligarchs, and corporate giants are reshaping the city into a shadowy financial hub disguised as an entertainment destination. The neon still glows, but it's a cruel joke. It's not for you. It's merely stage lighting for their backroom deals, a grand distraction while fortunes are moved unseen through a corrupted system. But the most unsettling question is whether Las Vegas is just the beginning. If America's most defiant and vibrant city can be systematically hollowed out and converted into a machine for the elite, then what other city is safe from the same predatory fate? If a place built on the promise of access for all can be hijacked for secrecy and control, how safe are any of our cultural landmarks from this insidious blueprint? The former CEO left his audience with a single, bone-chilling declaration. Vegas didn't collapse. It was assassinated. But when the architects of this desolation are unmasked, the horrifying truth becomes clear. This was never a game of chance. It was a brutal seizure of power. Las Vegas was built on a grand deception, a glittering mirage of neon lights, the siren's call of slot machines, and the endless rivers of champagne. It was all a meticulously crafted fantasy to lull you into a stupor. But now, the master illusion, the ultimate con, has been shattered before our very eyes. The chilling emptiness of the Strip was no accident of fate. It was a cold, calculated strike, engineered and executed with chilling precision by the very predators who would feast on its corpse. A former casino kingpin has just shattered the code of silence, and his damning confession rips back the velvet curtain, exposing the grotesque reality of what Sin City has been twisted into. The city that once promised a dream for all has been perverted, hijacked to become an exclusive playground for a parasitic elite. Its loyal workers have been cast aside like trash, visitors barred, and the lifeblood of small businesses systematically crushed to serve a far more sinister agenda. This is a Vegas ripped from the heart of America and handed over to a shadowy global cabal. Be warned, behind every shuttered theater and every silent, ghostly casino floor lurks a sickening tale of absolute power, a cesspool of laundered fortunes, insatiable corporate avarice, and deep state collusion. And you must ask yourself, with terror in your heart, if they can orchestrate the fall of a titan like Las Vegas, what city, what institution is safe from their grasp? So as those iconic lights continue to flicker across the desolate Strip, dare to ask the forbidden question. Are they a beacon for you or a monument to the ones who have taken everything from you? The horrifying truth, whispered from the lips of the empire's own architects, confirms our darkest fears. Las Vegas isn't dead. That would be a mercy. No, it's been conquered, remolded into their image, and is now masquerading in plain sight. The ultimate question now hangs over us all. Will the American people rise up to reclaim what was stolen, or has the City of Dreams had its soul permanently exorcised? Its story rewritten by monsters.